No, it's not the new iPod. It's the new Roku 3 with attached headset.
It's the Roku 3 product review from Spike Studio, another edition that we welcome here at the studio because we love this device.
Welcome everybody, it's another Spike Studio product review. This time we're going to say thank you to Roku for sending over the Roku 3, taking a look at it. Many of you remember we did take a look at the Roku 2, which is this one right here. Pretty much identical, the same size. We have a picture of the two together. So that part is identical. One thing that was different before we do take a look inside the box and then the actual setup was the back of it. So one thing that's different between the Roku 2 and the Roku 3 is the way they put the ports on the back. It does use a different size plug, so keep that in mind. You cannot use your own power that you had from the old one for the new one. You'll have to swap it out. I tried to do it real quick just to replace the device. It does have the same connectivity otherwise built into it, which was nice to see. So let's take a quick look inside the box and see what we have that comes with it. All right, so we're taking a look at the box itself. They did a really good job with packaging. They're always good and simple with it. Roku does a good minimalistic packaging is what I like about it. A lot of it's recycled materials. A help guide, which we all know is very helpful when you get to the Roku. Easy enough. Controller, and of course, the actual Roku itself. They did the sides on the box, which gave the power and everything, which gave it the height. So on one side was the power, and on the other side, I want to talk about this thing really quick, was what you saw at the beginning, was the headset. It comes with a couple different size earpiece parts for those that have larger, smaller ears, whatever it was. The quality, they're all right. They're not the best in the world. You may have a better pair laying around that you want to use. You can plug any standard headset into the remote itself, which was nice to see. So I swapped them out, I replaced it, and I was pretty pleased with the way it functioned, the way it worked. There's no big deal there. Otherwise, the Roku itself, standard size, like a hockey puck. They've rounded it now instead of more of a square. They've rounded the edges, and that's the only difference besides the port alignment in the back. One other thing that you'll notice that's missing, though, from the back is the AV out that was there before. This is an HD only. 720, 1080, that's your choices. When we do the setup screen, you'll see it, but there was the old audio out on the back that's no longer there. It still has the USB port on the side, though, so you can plug in your own movies and video files if you happen to have some laying around on a USB. And the only other difference on the back, take a look at, is there's a tiny little microSD slot. No big deal. Saw it in the picture earlier on. So let's do this. Let's take a look. Let's walk through the setup screens really quick and show you how easy it is to get it up and moving inside your environment. So as you can see behind me, you get the normal welcome from the Roku itself. The Roku screen is flying by. No big deal there. It'll actually jump over then. As soon as it leaves this, we'll get into setup. It was about 20-30 seconds to get past that point that it did it. Once it leaves there, we're into the language you need to select using the remote control. You're able to actually select the language. 4 languages on the screen. It's then going to find the remote control right away. So I was trying to use it and it said no remote yet. So it actually looks for the remote control, it finds the remote control, and once it finds it, you're ready to go. So I went ahead and I selected English and said, let's do the steps. 3 easy steps and you're activated. So I went ahead, clicked OK, continue on from there. I'm going to choose wired. I prefer to do it the wired interface instead of wireless. Once I clicked it, it's going to do its own checks. It jumped through the check marks really quick and I was done. It's going to do the latest software. This whole process right here that I sped up a little in the background, probably only took about 15 seconds for it to get it. Good connection, it was wired. I didn't have to go through the wireless configuration steps, which saved me some effort and some energy and time. So that was no big deal either. Once we left the update, it rebooted itself. It jumped back to the welcome screens, as you can see, no signal. I was doing this all over HDMI cable, of course. Roku swings in and we're off and running with the Roku 3. I do like their little intro animations that they put in there. Made it a little more fun for the startup time. I did notice after the restart with the updates, it was a little bit faster than when I first got my hands on it, which was interesting to say the least. Wasn't quite sure why it was faster, but it did it. So now I've already done the language, I've already done the network connectivity, so the next step, of course, would be once it starts up, is we need to get into things like activation. So here's the activation on the screen. I don't care if you see the code or not, it's only good at that time. They randomize it as you go along. I went in, I logged in via my iPad real quick, logged into the site, activated it. It said, do you have an account or not? Yes, I have an account from previous Rokus. So I went ahead and I activated my Roku, and what it did next was pretty interesting. So it found it, and because I already had a previously integrated Roku into the system that knew me as a login, it went out and grabbed all the channels that I had before previously configured and put them onto this one. So it basically did a migration for me. That's one of the things I was curious about up front is what would it do with all the channels I had pre-configured and set up? Well, as you can see, it's running through adding the channels as we go along. Made it really easy to do to make sure that my new device was exactly the same as the other one in terms of, I should say, what channels were available. Of course, as we all know, the new Roku 3, as we know, the Roku 3 now offers a whole new interface, which some of the old Roku 2 devices are going to get. It's more of a grid look. And someone online said, ooh, it's 2D. Well, it's always been 2D. It just wasn't in a grid format. It was in a straight linear line, and you had to scroll forever instead of quickly up and down a page. So that's what you're going to get now is the new format. So it's just finishing up adding everything, including the Blockbuster on demand, which it prompted me when I was doing the setup if I wanted to do it online. So I added Blockbuster. It's going to load the Angry Birds again because, of course, we got to have Angry Birds if we have a remote control. I've played it once on the old one, probably the day I got it. I've never played Angry Birds again. So take it for what it's worth. It's not a selling point for me, the channels and the streaming of what it's there for me. So we're then, setup is complete. Everything looks great. Now you see it. We have the actual channels. They're laid out in the grid for you, but I wanted to go through the settings and actually talk about the settings that were available. Most of them are identical to what they had before. One of the things you can do is change the screensaver, which I always do. I play around with the settings on this one. Why? I like to see local weather. I like to see the local time. I like to see all those things that's going on. So as you can see, this is the screensaver in the background. I'll show you weather, temperature, all that. You can check your time zone settings that are on there to make sure it's in the correct time zone. It picked mine up automatically. And then there was another interesting piece is the scrolling now goes all the way through, but they actually had themes now. So themes would change the look and feel that are on the screen. So I played around a little bit. I ended up going back to the default. Now the Nebula, this one took forever to load. I'm not sure what the deal was with this one or whatever it got, but at the very end, this is pretty much what you get. Yeah, I wasn't impressed. I don't think you're impressed either. So I went back and I said, you know what? I'm gonna go back and give me the default. I couldn't take it anymore. So we're back to the default. Other things you can do inside of it, change the audio mode. You can make sure what setting you're at for the videos at 1080 or 720. Keep that in mind for bandwidth needs and considerations, as well as what the TV is. Does it support it or not? It's a big piece of the puzzle right there. So if you have a 1080p, you can go to 1080p on the TV. You can change the language if you need to. You can get into anything else about the applications themselves. But as we go back, pretty much the thing to look at then is the interface, right? Everything's a scrolling interface now. So you're able to go up and down the page. It cycles itself. We don't have any more of that linear problem where we're going back and forth across. All the settings are now on the left-hand side. I really like the way they changed this and made everything a rolling type of interface for you. All your channels are still there that they were before. They run an ad over on the side behind me here now. So there's actually an advertisement there, which is interesting enough. Amazon has one for a movie that you can rent and see. You can then also rate your channels. You can move them around, you can remove them, and do anything else you want to do. So that's it. Pretty much the Roku 3 is now set up and ready to stream. You may have to activate your accounts for things like Netflix and Amazon, but otherwise, it is Roku 3 HD. Get your hands on it today. Link is in the show notes as well as on the screen. And get yourself a device, man. This is the wave of the future. Another Spike Studio product review.